You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for your support of The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu. Live Uncommon. We continue our series, Set Apart to Serve, as we encourage young people to consider church work vocations. Today, we head to camp. That's right, we're heading to Camp Iota Sikh. Our guest today, Daniel Sanchez, camp director at Camp Iota Sikh. Daniel, welcome back to The Coffee Hour.
Great to be with you today.
So tell us your story of how the Lord brought you to serving in this vocation in this way at Camp Iota Sikh.
Yeah, well, I suppose, starting the root of this really starts back in college a lot. I had been certainly involved with campus ministry while I was at college, and my pastor was on the board of directors for Lutheran Island Camp up in northern Minnesota. Great place. And he told me I should work there at summer camp. And so I ended up getting roped in after my junior year of college. And you know how I thought that you're going into your senior year of college and you know what you're going to do. I was majoring in Spanish and I go do summer camp, and I realize as soon as I'm done with my first summer at summer camp is, oh no, I have one more year of college and now I know what I want to do for the rest of my life. But I got roped in that way. I ended up coming back for 2 more summers after that summer to keep doing counseling at Lutheran Island Camp. And then shortly after that, I ended up coming down to Camp Iota Sikh for a little bit. But yeah, the road really starts at college and campus ministry. And campus ministry, even before that, my mom did a great thing as a parent when she was there for freshman orientation. And she drove me over to the church in town and said, "This is where the church is. I want you to go here." And, from there, made a great connection with the campus pastor there. He and I have been good friends all the way to this day. And then that just kind of continued to progress through there all the way up to here I am today, the camp director at Camp Iota Sikh. I've been here for 16 years at the camp. It's just been a wonderful joy and privilege.
So in terms of campus ministry, the fact that your mom went with you physically to find the church near your college, that campus ministry, I mean, that speaks volumes about how important it was to your family that you be connected to a church. So then you found the campus ministry, you found this church, and were able to be fed throughout your time at college. Tell me more about those years of college and how campus ministry was a support to you.
Yeah. We were starting a group really. So it was kind of they had maybe been meeting for a year or two before that. And it really started to kind of flourish as an organization while I was there. And, it was just a great rock to have in the midst of really what is an unbelieving world. The college campuses are just, places where there's not a lot of talk of God, or it's very frowned upon, even in the early 2000s, and even more so today. And, that I'll never forget my mom doing that, driving me there. And when I got here to Iowa, I also went to church here down in Iowa City. We have a great campus ministry down there at the University of Iowa. And, the campus pastor there also always talks about the importance of, many times parents coming that first weekend with their child to church there as a real big indicator about, participating in the church when they get to campus and continuing through their time at college. But campus ministry was really a wonderful time, an opportunity to learn, to test my beliefs, to ask questions, because, you're going to encounter all kinds of information at college that is going to be contrary to the Christian faith, and to find real solid answers was a wonderful resource to have. And then, of course, college students aren't perfect people, and they need a place where they can hear about God's mercy and love for them. And that's, I think, what's most important about campus ministry is proclaiming the gospel to those students and to those people that are there.
So throughout your time, it was a support to you as well while you were a student. then bring us from there, from college then to, you knew that you wanted to be at camp, it sounds like, while you were in college. Tell us that the rest of that path to serving at camp after college.
Well, I don't know that I really wanted to. I had known some other people at college, for lack of a better way to put it, campy people, and they were kind of cheerleaders about it. And I like my books a lot, and I thought, well, this is silly. I don't know if I want to do this. And lo and behold, here I am, a very campy person indeed. But I. Going to camp was a great way. What I learned about it, what I learned to love about camp ministry, and was that that is a fantastic place to encounter youth and young people with their questions. Very similar to maybe what I was experiencing in campus ministry at the time, but kids have questions, and it's a great place to develop a genuine trusting relationship with campers and youth, where they can feel free to ask the questions that they want about the world and the society that's going on around them, and to apply those questions to what the Word of God says. And it caused me even more so to learn my Bible more, to learn the theology more, so that I could be a good teacher for all the kids that came to. Yeah, what a wonderful setting to be able to encounter children in their circumstances and address the questions that they have by creating a trusting and friendly relationship with them.
So certainly camp can be an environment where youth and children can be encouraged to consider church work vocations, just encouraged certainly to be in the Word and strengthened in their faith. What about you as a youth? What shaped your views of church work vocations?
I don't think I'm that much different than most children, especially within the church, that, they know pastors. That's probably the person they see the most. I came from a small Missouri Synod church in Redwood Falls, Minnesota, that ended up closing down right as I was getting confirmed. I was a mission startup, and it didn't really take. And there are some other big churches in town, a very big Wells church in town as well, with a big parochial school. But I knew my pastors. I got to know the pastors that were there. I certainly remember the pastors' names, and I remembered one in particular, did a great job of, at the confirmation table, discussing with us and talking with us. And so, like most people, I definitely knew pastors. And then from there, we had to drive, a little ways to get to church from there. But again, noting those pastors, that even though it's maybe just a little bit in the, as you're leaving church or whatever, that they take note of you. Oh, I saw you, that you're playing basketball for this team, or I saw, taking those notes on the people that are in their church and saying hi to them and making sure that, they're aware of what's going on in their life, was kind of the way by which I really saw, church workers growing up.
So throughout your youth, you had a good experience with your pastors and enjoyed it sounds like the relationship you had with them, especially during the time of confirmation, getting to know them and having questions, being able to ask questions and having them answered. Certainly sounds like it played a role in your relationship with your pastors.
Yeah, definitely. We kind of had an overlap, because while one pastor left, another one came in, and the new pastor, we very much as kids appreciated having our questions answered and talking, and the conversational aspect was that. And, we had another one fill in very briefly. And the approach was, highlight the catechism. Here, highlight this. Class is going to be over, so just highlight this part and read it later. And as youth, we've certainly felt the void of, well, why? Every good kid asks that question. Well, why? What is important about that? And, you definitely remember the people who take time to teach and to sit with you and talk with you.
So why is it important, and I know this is a big part of your vocation, the way that you serve today, but why is it important to you to help youth consider church work vocations?
Well, first, it gives youth a visualization that they will be a part of the church as an adult, I think. If you think about it, young people are always asking and answering questions about the things they'll do someday, from where do you want to go? What do you want to do? We shouldn't take it for granted that their life in Christ is a part of that. It needs to, I think, be reinforced that, hey, this could be a part of what you do someday, and not just that you're going to go on vacation to this place or have these experiences, but, to help visualize how they might be a part of the church someday, I think is a really important thing that we shouldn't take for granted.
Very good. I want to continue the conversation here in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break as we continue our conversation with Daniel Sanchez about Set Apart to Serve and how we encourage young people to consider church work vocations. You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
You're a miracle. You know that, right? A living, breathing, one-of-a-kind miracle. You were created to stand apart, to share your gifts in the service of others, to make an uncommon impact in a common world. And at Concordia University, it's our mission to help you do that, to live uncommon. To learn more about Concordia, go to cuw.edu.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates. We are continuing our conversation in Set Apart to Serve, encouraging young people to consider church work vocations. Today, we're talking with Daniel Sanchez, camp director at Camp Iodosica. We were talking about why it's important to help youth consider church work vocations. Anything you'd like to add to that, Daniel?
Yeah, I think for junior high and up, having a path to project your strengths goes a long way. I think as youth grow, they're gaining strengths and qualities, and to have a way to match up their strengths with the qualifications of working in the church, considering a career in church work can be a great gateway into taking godly living in the family setting into their personal lives. That's certainly something we want all Christian youth to develop, regardless of whether or not they end up in church work. But merely considering church work vocations is a way for young Christians to think about applying the expectations of working in a church into their personal lives. A young person considering or being encouraged to do church work, they'll read when they get to, 1st, 2nd Timothy, Titus. They'll take a much more that into a much more serious light. And that's a good thing for any Christian, but I think especially for somebody who's maybe a prospective church worker.
Yeah, if we start from this perspective of encouraging all youth to consider it, that I think shapes their view as a youth. It doesn't mean that every youth is going to become church worker necessarily, but giving them that opportunity to consider it, I think giving all youth the opportunity to consider church work vocation certainly can shape that view. So how do you go about then helping youth consider church work in your own vocations? I'm sure at camp you have plenty of opportunities, but throughout life, there may be other opportunities to help youth consider church work vocation. So what has that been like for you? What are the ways that you found that you can support youth in considering church work vocations?
Yeah, I think there's two things here. First is, earn their trust. I think that's a really overlooked thing, that earning their trust, not trying to manipulate it or, gain it in some way that is maybe manufactured, but to really take time to earn the trust of people that you are wanting to encourage in church work. We always tend to think that our pastors and church workers also, they always need to get to know their congregation and their youth, and that is definitely very true. That's true and important. I think what's more important about that exchange is actually how that youth are getting to know their pastors and church workers through that process and beyond their vocation as a worker in the church. Now, there is a general, we see this at camp, I think, quite a bit, is there is a general distrust in the society with church professionals. Kids are constantly being sold things today, and they feel like every time they work with a professional, they're being sold something, especially in that. So, creating opportunities where I think church professionals, church workers aren't seen necessarily as church professionals, but simply as regular people who share in the same joys and struggles in life is a key component in creating trust between those serving in ministry and those receiving spiritual care and Christian education.
You've, I think, really brought up something that is significant in talking about where youth are today. And certainly you're on the front lines with this with camp, but just identifying that youth camp is an environment where youth can feel comfortable asking questions, sometimes even difficult or tough questions when it comes to the world and worldview and God's word as well. And perhaps there's something to be said about that environment and the relationship that they develop with the camp staff in the time that they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To have a genuine relationship with a Christian role model.
Mhm.
And, I know that I wish parents could get to see a lot of times the questions that their kids ask when they're here at camp, or even their pastors, because they would be so proud that their parishioner, their child asked that kind of a question. And it's also the kinds of questions that we hope that they would be able to ask their parents as well. So that's a real key thing. And really, the next kind of key thing about that in helping, youth consider church work is, directing youth to a place where their strengths and their desire to serve in the church can be developed through service or a specific education. And, certainly beyond like just encouraging comments, that's not really directing somebody. I mean, like in the
Mhm.
same way my mom drove me to church, kind of directing. Here it is. You should really take a serious look into this. Find them something real that they can participate in and find a way to be able to get them to participate in that thing. That's what really directing somebody to that is. And again, as I mentioned too, at the campus ministry, too, there's so many, if you ask, I think any campus pastor, when those parents take the time to go to church with their kid at this place, that makes a huge difference in their ability to continue going to church there throughout. So definitely directing them to a place where they can develop their God-given strengths in service or additional education. A lot of people who end up being music directors or something like that, finding them an opportunity, a church music camp or something like that, where they can get involved with this community, that they can use their musical gifts in service to the Lord. Those are other great opportunities, great ways to direct them into developing their strengths.
So what I'm hearing you say is beyond just speaking in general terms about church work, serving in the church, is to be more specific and connect youth with real and specific ways of serving while they're still youth, to serve in the church, to connect with an opportunity to serve with something that might be a good match for their interests or their gifts and strengths. So that it's not just speaking in general terms about service in the church in the future, but how to serve in the church now, today.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And, I know we tend to get locked into key positions, and certainly the church needs pastors, the church
Mhm.
needs teachers. Yeah, in fact, we can obviously argue that we need all vocations, especially the ones that we have to offer here in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. My mom always told me that she thought I'd be a pastor someday. I'm not yet, or anything like that. Maybe someday, we'll see. But my pastor in college also thought, yeah, maybe you'll probably be a pastor someday or something like that. Well, I never quite got into that, but we still found there are so many opportunities and ways for people to serve in the church that, they don't have to necessarily get locked into one of those areas. So there are lots of other vocations throughout the church.
I think if we help youth see, though, the importance and the value of serving in the church, that they're more likely to see those and consider those ways of serving in those official offices that
Mhm.
we might refer to as, the serving as a pastor or another rostered church worker setting or another lay ministry setting, serving in some sort of lay leadership position as well. I think just helping them see, as you've pointed out, connect to opportunities to serve in the present. And maybe it might seem small, but how significant of a difference it can make for a young person if they're given that opportunity to practice this now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what we're really talking about, directing them, helping them to apply their strengths in a field where they can see that, and visualize this is how I might be able to be someday. We
Mhm.
live in a society where there's never been more aimless young people. And there's quite a bit of polarity here. There are a lot of people who come from really solid family settings and so forth, and then they have great direction from their family and great input from their family. But then we also have so many young people who don't have that. They don't have quality time with their family. They don't have a church. They don't have something that points them in any kind of a way. And so, helping people to identify specific skills, specific strengths, and then showing them this might be a way that you can participate in the church going forward, I think is a really helpful tool in the day and age when that just, looking forward and not being aimless, something to go forward from.
Well, you've offered some great insights on encouraging youth to consider what we can do in a very practical way today to encourage youth to consider church work vocations now and in the future. What about parents and pastors? Are there ways that you found that you can support parents and pastors to help youth, parents, pastors, and other church workers as well, teachers, DCEs, to encourage youth to consider church work vocations?
Yeah, I think finding those opportunities I alluded to earlier, trying to take their family setting of Christianity and finding those opportunities for young people, especially through service and education, are great ways to help them to apply that at a personal level, which is, I think, what everybody wants when their kids get older and they start to develop into adults and start pursuing careers that faith would go with them wherever they go into the world. So finding those opportunities, I think, at the family and church level, parents and pastors, I think as the church, we really could do a great job, in directing financial resources to cultivate those kinds of experiences that develop trusting relationships between youth and church workers. So, if it is a servant event project or if it is a youth trip, whatever it is, to find those opportunities that can create those trusting bonds. I think most people who go into church work can point to and name specific people that said, that person right there, they pointed me in this direction. They directed me this way. I'll never forget the words that they said. Making sure that we support those experiences that really foster those trusting relationships between church workers and youth. And then again, doing what we can to support experiences that help them to apply, that Christian faith to what they're doing and finding ways to springboard that into service in the church, I think are really the key ways that parents and pastors should really look to bring about those opportunities for young people.
Well, Daniel, you've provided some great insights for us today in encouraging young people and those who love them to help youth can consider church work vocations. I know that summer is a busy season for you at camp, so thanks for making time for us today to share these great insights. Our guest today, Daniel Sanchez, camp director at Camp Iota Sika. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour and part of Set Apart to Serve.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@kfuo.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.